Dust shimmered across the dry grass like spilled gold, catching in the folds of 5 bonnets that bobbed steadily across the field. From the slanted barn window, John Marston watched without blinking, his broad shoulders tucked into the shadows like a mountain that forgot how to move. The girls came barefoot, their skirts hemmed in mud, a basket swinging between them and the wind in their hair. They didn't knock. They stopped at the gate and waited, all of them looking toward the crooked porch where a man hadn't spoken to a woman in near 2 decades. The eldest stepped forward, he guessed 19. Auburn braid down her back, chin set like someone who'd already buried too many hopes. She didn't flinch when his figure filled the barn's doorway, shirt off, hammer still dangling from his palm. Her voice came steady. "We ain't beggin'. Just asking to trade." John didn't answer. The hammer fell silent at his side. "Our hens got no feed," she said, "but your cows need milkin', and we know how. You let us milk, we'll leave eggs. You won't owe us nothin'. Don't need charity, mister." The youngest girl, maybe 16, held the basket and stared at her boots. One beside her had freckles and a sly smile that didn't reach her tired eyes. Another girl leaned on her slightly, limping just so, and the last hummed low under her breath, like she was trying to soothe the morning air. John let the silence stretch until the wind stirred again. Then, without a word, he turned toward the barn and left the door wide behind him. They followed. Their laughter that morning drifted through slats and straw, soft and unsure, like birds who forgot the sound of flight. John busied himself fixing the fence on the east side of the corral, but his eyes returned often, drawn to how they moved, how they poured milk like it was ritual. The girl with the limp tied a ribbon to the cow's ear. The smallest sketched something in a folded book. He'd expected them to chatter like schoolgirls. But mostly, they worked in quiet harmony. He kept the fence between them. And maybe a little more. When they left, they didn't say goodbye. Just left the eggs on the gate post. 7 brown shells cradled in wool. The next morning, they returned. And the one after that. John didn't stop them. He learned their names in pieces. Temperance, the bold one with the braid. Fay, gentle limping steps and eyes that saw deeper than they should. Nessa, the sarcastic one, deflecting every softness with a joke. June, who whispered to animals and sang lullabies when no one asked her to. Ivy, the youngest, quiet and precise, sketchbook in hand, drawing everything like she didn't trust words. He never told them his name, but they began calling him Sir, and sometimes Mister. Once, Ivy called him Giant Man, and Nessa laughed until she snorted. He almost smiled. Almost. The town noticed. Of course it did. Whispers floated down from the general store, sharp as cold water. 5 girls goin' up to Marston's ranch. That ain't proper, not with him livin' alone. You know what he is, don't you? Never did take a wife. Probably wild. John heard them. And the old shame stirred again, the kind that coiled in his chest like winter frost. He'd once stood shirtless in the rain, waiting on a girl who promised to meet him under the bridge at dusk. He waited 2 hours. She never came. Said later he was too big, too slow, too strange. Said her daddy told her no man like that was worth a proper daughter's hand. That same week, John left town and built a house with no front steps, no path, no welcome. Now, 5 girls walked his land like it was theirs. They worked. They never took more than they gave. And still the shame pressed in, because he liked their voices, their humming, the smell of bread when June snuck some from a satchel, the way Ivy glanced at him like she was sketching his bones. He tried to push them away. "Not safe here," he muttered one day. "Find another barn." Temperance tilted her head. "Safer than where we came from." He didn't ask. But he noticed Fay flinch at loud sounds. Nessa didn't like closed doors. Ivy wore long sleeves in summer. One morning, he left a piece of sourdough on the railing. No note. The next morning, the basket held wildflowers. Then came the storm. It hit sudden, sky rolling black over the hills, thunder in its gut. The heifer, Sugarfoot, went into labor just as rain slammed the roof. The girls were already in the barn when the wind howled like something mourning. Ivy, climbing to check the loft for blankets, slipped. John saw her fall, arms pinwheeling, that sketchbook flying, and caught her before her head struck the feed trough. She was limp in his arms, wet and shivering, eyes fluttering like candlelight. The others screamed. He didn't speak, just carried her through the storm, boots sinking in mud, into his cabin. First time he let one of them inside. The hearth was cold, but he knelt beside it, cradling Ivy while June fumbled with kindling and Nessa tore off her shawl to wrap her. John sat still as the storm pounded. Ivy's lips were blue. "Breathe," he whispered, not to her but to himself. When she stirred, he bowed his head. They didn't leave that night. Rain made the roads vanish. Thunder made Faye cover her ears and rock. So John made tea. Burnt it. They drank it anyway. Later, by the fire, Temperance asked, "Why'd you leave town, mister?" He stared into the flames. Saw that rain-soaked boy again. "I tried to love someone," he said at last. "Didn't know how. She left. Everyone else said I wasn't right. So I stopped speakin'." It got quieter that way. Ivy, now wrapped in 3 shawls, murmured, "You speak just fine." No one laughed. But something in the air warmed. Next morning, the sun returned, cracked open and gentle. Ivy slept peacefully. June was making breakfast. Faye swept the porch without asking. Nessa found his old knife and was whittling something out of cedar. John stepped out, breathing in damp earth and smoke. Temperance joined him, arms crossed, her face unreadable. "You saved her," she said. "I just caught her." "No," she whispered. "You opened your door." He didn't reply. But he didn't turn away either. Days passed. Weeks. The girls kept returning. Not every day. But enough. They patched his shirts, sharpened his tools, cleaned the tack room. They drew horses on the barn wall and taught the heifer to answer to song. One afternoon, June taught John how to braid rope proper. His hands shook. "Can't remember the last time someone touched my hands," he said. She looked up, brown eyes soft. "They've built a lot." One evening, as the sun folded itself into the hill, Nessa handed him Ivy's sketchbook. "She wants you to have it." Inside were pages of him, splitting wood, leaning against the barn, kneeling by the stove. Always alone. But never angry. Never frightening. Just watching. Waiting. He closed it gently, the ache in his chest not painful, just heavy like rain-soaked soil ready for seed. Then came the night of the biscuits. Temperance brought them, warm and wrapped in linen. No words. Just the smell of rosemary and flour. He invited her to sit on the porch, and she did. They ate in silence until she said, "We're staying. You can't stop us." John turned to her. The sky behind her was bleeding pink into lavender, the stars just beginning to blink. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded. "You gave us safety. We'll give it back." For the first time in 20 years, John Marston smiled. Not wide. Not easy. But true. And maybe that was enough. Because some hearts don't begin again with kisses or grand promises. They begin with silent bread on a rail. With 5 girls showing up when the world had gone dry. With a sketchbook full of truths, and a storm that forced the door open. And as the wind curled around the eaves that night, carrying the scent of wild lilac and ash, John looked out at the field where they first walked toward him. And saw the dust rising again. But this time, it wasn't from leaving. It was from roots being laid.